Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, nationally recognized retirement specialist and six-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
In the movie The Big Lebowski, two close friends dealing with the loss of another close friend decide to have him cremated and place his remains in a coffee can, all with the intention of honoring their dead friend by tossing his remains off a scenic cliff off the coast of California. Everything about this sentimental moment is quite touching until the ashes tossed in the air blow right back into one of their faces. And while I've never tossed a loved one's ashes off a cliff, on two separate occasions I have sat around the table at the local funeral home as part of the family members attempting to make final decisions on the arrangements of a deceased loved one. First, my father, who passed away back in the 90s at the age of 64, and then just a few years ago making arrangements for my dear mother-in-law who succumbed to cancer. In both cases, planning the details of the funeral, picking out the casket, what to say in their obituary, who might speak at the service, of all those things, the one thing they had in common was this: neither of them could take it with them, which is one reason, among many reasons, I wrote the book Live Well, Die Broke. Because in the end, folks, you really can't take it with you. Part 2. Well, welcome, folks, to the Worry-Free Retirement. And yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest. You can't take it with you specialist and fiduciary, Tony Walker. And before we get started with the second part of our program content, let me introduce two young lads in the Worry-Free production studios here in Louisville. America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orander, and Louisville, Kentucky's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson. Okay, seeing as though this is a show dedicated to helping savers plan for retirement and ways to use and enjoy your money in retirement before it's too late, you might be asking, Tony, why do you keep talking about this thing called death when all I want to do is figure out where to invest my money? Well, my friend, therein lies the problem with most savers who don't have a game plan in place that gives them permission to use and enjoy their money before it's too late. And believe it or not, one of the main culprits to this not spending your money before it's too late and forgetting that we can't take it with us is something called having access to your money. You see, if you're going to use and enjoy your money before you die, then you must have your money positioned for easy access to it. So, what is something worth? Well, it's worth when you need it and when you can be assured that the investment you have in place will provide access at that time. So, you stay tuned as we continue our series on You Can't Take It With You Part 2. I'm Tony Walker. I'll be right back. You've worked hard your entire life. Now, let us work hard for you. My name is Tony Walker, and if you're looking for a game plan that can provide you peace of mind, look no further. Whether it's rolling over your 401k plan, reducing risk, or just setting up a plan that includes mailbox money for life, we're here to help. To speak with me at no cost or obligation, just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and click on that Let's Get Started button or call the number on your screen. We look forward to talking with you soon. Our Tony in the Trenches is an interesting encounter a prospective client shared with me while shopping for an advisor. Let's take a look. It says, Tony, I recently met with an advisor who impressed me when presenting on his office TV screen an annuity offering a 13% bonus and an annual rate of return of 7%. When I asked him if the 7% was guaranteed, he said no, but said it was likely to happen anyway, so don't worry about it. I then asked him for something in writing, but he said I would get that after I bought the annuity. I left his office with a funny feeling about the whole thing, as it all sounded too good to be true. So, Tony, what would you suggest I do? Comes from Dave in Bowling Green. Well, Dave, basically, I would make sure I got my wallet and got out of there. You know, folks, I'm seeing more and more of this. Annuity peddlers who will not shoot straight with savers about the pros and cons of annuities. So if that's you, maybe you've been recently pitched an annuity or thinking of researching these products, here's a few good questions to ask before you get your wallet out and possibly get stuck in the wrong annuity. Here we go. Question number one that you must ask for is a product brochure from the insurance company. Annuities are issued by insurance companies. There's hundreds of different products. Make sure they give you a product brochure specifically to the annuity they're recommending. Number two, make sure they show the surrender charges. Now, these should be in the product brochure, but you've got to make sure they point those out to you. Number three, something called market value adjustment, or MVA. Find out if they have this, because if you're thinking about possibly having to surrender this, it actually could affect the surrender penalties. It's a big issue. Number four, minimum guaranteed worst case scenario. Folks, when we're doing a game plan and talking about any investment, we like to kind of go through the minimum guarantees or worst case scenario, make sure they provide that to you. Here's a biggie. A lot of bonus products out there, nothing wrong with bonuses, but if there is a bonus provided with that annuity, ask if the bonus is immediately vested or is it deferred. Number six, which leads to our next point, access to the contract. How accessible are these contracts and when can I get my money? And finally, if they're going to give you an illustration, of course, we show illustrations all the time from these insurance companies, folks. Illustrations are fine. Past is not prologue, though, so you want to see the minimum guaranteed values on that illustration just to see what that worst case scenario might be. Okay, enough on annuities. Last week, on our theme around this whole topic, if you can't take it with you, I talked about one of my favorite TV programs called Antique Roadshow, where clueless owners of interesting stuff try to determine how much those items might fetch if someone else with knowledge can appraise them. Something we in the financial industry refer to as fair market value. All right? So what is fair market value? Well, here's my definition. Let's take a look. Basically, it's willing buyer, willing seller, neither under compulsion to buy nor sell. So take, for instance, let's say a rare vase uncovered on Antique Roadshow that an appraiser says is worth $1,000. And let's say you are the proud owner of that vase, and now all of a sudden you're facing hard times and you could really use the money. So instead of trying to find a buyer that really wants to pay $1,000 for this vase, you hastily run over to the local pawn shop to see how much it will fetch, and instead of paying you thousands of dollars, they'll give you $400 or $500. So what I mean is this. In that example, you let the compulsion of having to raise the money very quickly and sell that vase very dramatically, you broke the rule of fair market value. So how do we keep from violating the rules of fair market value and make sure we have access to our money in retirement? Well, we do this at Tony Walker Financial through something called the split IRA concept. And this is a game changer, folks, because most of you, number one, don't even have a game plan, but number two, you haven't positioned your money for access. So what I want to do, I want to slow this down a little bit because this is so important and probably the reason so many people are rolling their 401k plans and IRAs over to Tony Walker Financial. Here's how it works. Generally, we'll have two or more buckets. Now, generally, just think of this first bucket over here as the liquidity bucket, which means access. So whenever you hear something has high liquidity, that means you have high access, meaning usually you can get that money out very quickly. I like to say lickety split with little or no penalties. This is a key point. So the reason we use Charles Schwab, which is a brokerage firm, by the way, we can get stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, bank CDs, which as of the date of this recording are paying upwards of 5% guaranteed for a one-year CD. We can get those products through Charles Schwab. Now, why do we use Schwab? Well, as you can see, we can turn on income now if you want to. If you don't need income, we can let it defer and grow. It's very, very flexible, and mainly because the fees are so low. You see, to manage that bucket, we only charge at Tony Walker Financial 0.8% per year. So let's say you have $100,000 in that bucket. That means we're going to charge to do everything $800 a year. That's select the investments, that's setting up distributions, that's determining your tax withholdings, all of the planning advice, that's it. Plus, we find funds with Charles Schwab that are very, very low cost, or in some cases have no transaction fees. So it's a real winner for the saver. Then the second bucket, or sometimes multiple buckets, one of my favorites, is something we call mailbox money. Now, you don't have to use annuities for mailbox money, but many of our clients do. There are hundreds of different types of annuities. There's short-term accumulation, long-term accumulation, income annuities, some with surrender penalties, some with minimal penalties. Some you can get 10% penalty-free out every year, some you can't. The key is you have to understand how to use the annuity for access along with the other bucket. So much of what we do at Tony Walker Financial, when we set the game plan up, all the investments move over to us. We begin to manage everything. We're managing not just the investments, but here's the point, folks, that most advisors miss. We're managing a process so you can monitor how you're doing, staying on track, and then it gives us something to talk about. So we're not just talking about investments, we're talking about a process. So that's you right now. If you're sitting there saying, Tony, I don't think I have any kind of process. I got a bunch of investments. I got statements. I've got advisors that won't tell me how much I can spend in retirement. They sure don't want to talk to me about dying and using my money before it's too late. Well, let's do this right now. Let's talk. We call this the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call where you and I can talk for a few minutes by phone. And all you got to do to take advantage of this free offer is log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. You're going to click on that Let's Get Started button or simply call the number on your screen. All right, when I come back, we're going to get into this idea of access and something I learned years ago. It's really, really key to making sure you understand how money's positioned, how quickly you can get it without penalty, and how to use and enjoy this money before it's too late. I'm Tony Walker. I'll be right back. Have you recently retired, been laid off, or offered a pension buyout? Has the company you work for moved, been acquired, or closed its doors forever? And finally, do you have a 401k with a previous employer you'd like to move to safer territory? Then take advantage of this opportunity to move your 401k or lump sum pension to Tony Walker Financial. Let's meet in person to discuss your retirement options. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to schedule your free, no obligation appointment. Let us help you today. Earlier in our monologue, I talked about the notion of family members sitting around the funeral home trying to figure out what their last wishes of the dead close family member might have been. I've been in those settings, and it is difficult at best and sometimes a little contentious, as one family member wants a funeral service, can anyone say high cost, while the other would just as soon keep the cost down by putting your remains in a coffee can and maybe tossing your ashes over a cliff. Which is why, as an advisor to thousands of retirees today, more than ever, I'm suggesting savers consider something called a pre-planned funeral. Now, while I don't have any skin in the game nor make any money on suggesting savers consider pre-planning their funerals, I do think you need to know something about them and why they are becoming more and more popular, which is why I thought we could take a couple of minutes and go to the source of these pre-planned funerals, a funeral director who's in charge of these, Mr. Eddie Smith. What is a pre-planned funeral, and what are the advantages of someone taking advantage of going on and pre-planning their funeral?
Well, a pre-planned funeral is where someone comes in and sits down with the funeral director and tells them how they want things done, what they want. We take biographical information so that when the next of kin or their loved one comes in, a lot of things done ahead of time. And we've had a lot of people are very appreciative of their mother or their father or whoever come in and did this ahead of time.
And I'm getting that same feedback, Eddie. People have told me that loved ones have passed away who have pre-planned this funeral, and it sure takes a burden off of the family. So briefly, first of all, appreciate you being on, but briefly, how much can the price range be of a pre-planned funeral?
You're looking at a direct cremation, $29.95 to a burial, a night of visitation, where you casket, grave lots, monument, you'd probably be looking at between $9,000 and $11,000.
Okay. And so I'm sure people can contact you at J.C. Kirby and Son. Is there any cost or obligation to just discuss something like a pre-planned funeral with you guys?
No, we sit down with people and talk to them, and there's no charge because, like I said, we want to make sure everybody is happy when they come through our doors and leave our doors, but there's no charge.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Eddie, and you make it a good day.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right, back to our theme of access. I don't know about you and the way you like to learn new information, but I'm a visual learner, and I think most savers are. So the more you wish to make, the longer term approach in terms of access to your money you must consider. Now, I say a statement like that and you go, well, that doesn't even make any sense, Tony. What does that actually mean? Well, what I've found over the years is if you're getting ready to invest in anything, if it has a very long-term approach to it, if over the long term you should be able to make more money on your money, more growth, well, a lot of times you have to exchange for that long-term approach less access on your money, meaning if you do try to grab that money out of there, there could be severe penalties to get it early. So years ago, I studied under a gentleman by the name of Bob Castellone, and I loved his little graphics. I'm going to show you an example of how you think through this. And again, our title is having access to your money. He used something called the PS&G model, which stands for Protection, Savings, and Growth. I spent a lot of years ago studying these models and just think they make so much sense, but visually, as you're trying to learn how money works, how you can have access to this money, little things like this really help. Okay, so I'm kind of taking a little bit from it. I'm going to modify this just a little bit. But if we're talking about access, remember, access ties in with fair market value. Willing buyer, willing seller, neither under compulsion to buy nor sell. Again, we talk about give an example of this, talked about the housing boom recently back in 21 and 2022. The reason these sellers could sell these prices of these homes that were so high, so inflated, is because interest rates were low, which was compelling the buyer to pay more than they normally would. Obviously, now that interest rates are up in 2023, you've seen the housing market cool off. Florida, people are rushing to Florida. Prices of homes are high there because people are acting under compulsion, okay? So how does that fit into access? Well, let's take a look at this. If we look at this group here, these 9 boxes, the assets up here I'm going to list would be assets that probably don't pay a high return, but give you immediate access. Now, the one that I can think of immediately, we'll put right here, is cash, okay? So if I had a dollar bill, if I'm holding it right now, and I just held on to it, the dollar bill will not grow, okay? In fact, people would argue over time it'll be worth less because of inflation. But for a minute, we'll say it's worth $1. But guess what? I have high access to it because I could literally walk into a store, exchange it for something immediately. No penalties, no nothing. You with me? Now let's go to an extreme difference here with low access, okay? And I'm going to list something. This is going to surprise you. Your 401k plan. And you say, well, Tony, what do you mean? I've got high access to that. Really, you don't. Let's think about this. Let's say you're 50 years of age and you've got hundreds of thousands of dollars locked in this tax-infested 401k plan. You have an emergency and you need $100,000 right away. How are you going to get it? Well, unless you stop work and terminate the plan and take it that way, you can't get $100,000 out. The most you can borrow is $50,000. You're going to lose interest on it by paying it back in out of your pocket. You could lose the value of it while you got it borrowed out. You've got taxes on it. If you liquidate, I mean, this gets crazy. So as we see with a 401k pre-retirement, it has basically no access, but it gets worse because in retirement, if you don't have a trained retirement specialist working with you, again, it has very low access. Here's the other problem. Again, low access. Let's take a mutual fund or even a bond fund. We saw this in 2022. You might say, well, wait a minute, Tony. Even if I have mutual funds or bond funds in that 401k, I can get that money out at any time, partner, without penalty. And let's say you can. But what if the market is down 20 to 30% like it was in 2022? You're going to have access to it? Well, probably not, because most people then, well, they don't want to surrender it. Or if they do, they're going to take a hit of 20 or 30% loss. So as we move over here, generally high access, Actually, savings at the bank would go here. I like this one, cash value of life insurance. I've got a lot of whole life insurance on myself. Man, it's a wonderful tool because I can get it out anytime I want tax-free, and then I can pay it back the way I want to. Maybe a bond might be here. Now it depends on the bond, etc. Maybe you've got a CD here, maybe an annuity here, depending on the term of the annuity, that could be questionable. So folks, you have to visually imagine your money fitting into file drawers like this, imagining that you might need this money at any time. Hopefully you've got a game plan that can help you. But this is the way money really works. Remember, the longer the term approach of money and you trying to earn more on it, in most cases means really, theoretically, you've got less access to it, or at least access to it at huge potential penalties. So don't get caught in the wrong investments. Don't try to start investing money for retirement without a game plan and a trained retirement specialist such as us at Tony Walker Financial. Why don't you do this right now? Take advantage of something we call the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. All you do is log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. You're going to click on that Let's Get Started, or you can simply call the number on your screen. You and I will talk for no more than 10 minutes. I'll be able to quickly assess whether I can help you, and if I can, we're going to meet in person, again at no cost or obligation, at either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. All right, what does the Bible have to say about this idea of can't take it with you? Well, more importantly, it reminds us that not only can we not take it with us, but we're going to be leaving this stuff to somebody who may not take care of it or spend it and enjoy it the way we would. Good stuff coming your way. Let me get another cup of coffee. I'll be right back. With the uncertainty of the stock market, our nation's debt spiraling out of control, and inflation running rampant, now may be the best time to consider moving your 401k to safer territory. My name is Tony Walker, and for over 38 years I've made it my life's mission to help savers worry less about money, and I want to help you too. To speak with me at no cost or obligation, why don't you log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or simply call the toll-free number on your screen.
Did you know that you can watch the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money anytime you want? The show's called The WorryFree Retirement. It's hosted by Tony Walker, and it's available on YouTube. All you got to do is go to youtube.com, and right there in the search bar, type in Tony Walker Financial, and you'll see Tony's smiling face. Click on that and you're going to find all types of video content. Again, that's youtube.com, Tony Walker Financial.
In Ecclesiastes 8:7, the richest man who ever walked the face of the earth had a thing or two to say about this whole idea of you can't take it with you when he said, "If no one knows what will happen, who can tell him when it will happen?" And isn't that the whole problem with working all our lives to save all this money for the future and for our retirement? Isn't the whole point of retiring from work is that so you can spend and enjoy this money that you've worked so hard to save? Well, the problem with all of this saving and stockpiling is what Jesus reminds us of that can happen in Luke 12:17 through 19, and it is this. Just at the time we are ready to enjoy what we have saved, God has another thing in mind, our appointed time of death. And with this fact that no one knows for sure when they might take their last breath, we are faced with the reality that when we die, not only will we die broke, it should dawn on us that all of this money we have stored in our barns, can anyone say tax-infested 401k plan? All of this money must one day be left to someone who didn't do a darn thing to earn it, but now can spend this money as they so please. Which, quite frankly, is one of the reasons I work so hard to write and direct this show each week, and one of the reasons I wrote my recent best-selling book, Live Well, Die Broke, to simply remind savers that this money is not worth a penny if you don't spend it or at least give it away to somebody you want to. And as the Bible so clearly reminds us, to do so now is one of the wisest things we can do with it. To spend more now and give more now not only brings value to the dollar bill, but also allows us to see how others might use it as well. This understanding of you can't take it with you is the beginning of the most valuable asset one can possess. It's called wisdom. In God's Word, wisdom always trumps money. Why? Because wisdom never changes. Wisdom lives on after the one who observed it passes on. Money? Well, we just saw that money is fool's gold because not only can you not take it with you, but as the late great Solomon observed and lamented, at some point we must leave it all to someone who may or may not take care of it the way we did. So here's my suggestion. Look more to God for wisdom about your life and what you really want to do with this money before you die, and then consult man about it. Don't rely on me or anyone else to browbeat you what you should be doing with this money you've worked so hard to earn and save, but rather seek His wisdom as found in the Bible, then go about your business and possibly seek the counsel of others who you feel possess such wisdom as well. You do that, and I assure you that you will enjoy this money a whole lot more, and that, my friend, is some really good news you can take to the bank. Amen? Well, I've got a question for you. What wisdom are you gaining from the financial world and those advisors who represent it? Do all of these people after your money seem to be more interested in what you want or what they get? Well, if you feel like everyone is just after your money and not providing you a way to use and enjoy it, and yes, trying to leave this money to the loved ones you want when you die, then we need to talk. My name is Tony Walker, and for nearly 40 years, I've made it my life's work to help savers worry less about money, and I want to see if I can help you too. And best of all, it's free and very easy to talk to me. We call this the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. And here's how you can take advantage of speaking with the owner of the company, someone who's met in person with over 15,000 savers right now. One, you can log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and just click on that Let's Get Started button. Or if you like, you can call us at the number on your screen to arrange your free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. Then after we speak, if it warrants, I'll be happy to meet with you in person at either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. So do it now. Log on to our website or give us a call at the number on your screen. Well, we hope you've enjoyed You Can't Take It With You Part 2. Believe it or not, actually, I'm come up with another show next week, You Can't Take It With You Part 3. Some really good stuff coming your way. But between now and then, you remember, if all else fails, you be worry-free. Make it a good one.